Welcome to The Good Pod, where today we'll be talking about Season 1, Episode 1 of the show that started it all, The Good Wife. I am one of your hosts, Jason Reed. With me, as always, my co-host, Marissa Garza. Marissa, how's it hanging? How's it going? We're here. We're starting at the beginning. It's time.
It's been so long since I've watched the show. I'm so excited that we're covering it and talking about it. We were talking a little bit before the pod about like how eerie it is that we've got like these storylines happening in the show and these storylines happening elsewhere.
I mean, listen, a highly elected government official sent to jail over a sex scandal cover-up. Is it the news or is it the Good Wife? It's so precious. It's just like it's coincident. It's like it's kismet that we are talking about this show at this time when just earlier this week, former President Trump going to jail for a hush money scandal. Crazy.
34 charges. This was one charge. The show is focusing on one or maybe two charges, not 34.
Listen, something tells me that the former president isn't going to be giving a press conference like Peter did
No.
in the show.
No, yeah, he's got a different way of life there, but
Yeah.
I am
He's got a different
excited.
swag to him. He's got a different swag.
It's so interesting. I have done a rewatch of The Good Wife before, but it is interesting to be watching it at this time, and especially like being able to like really dive into it with you. I'm really excited to be here. How did you feel like
How long ago
watching it?
was your rewatch? Yeah, how long ago was your
Oh,
rewatch?
well, I was watching The Good Fight, and then when The Good Fight ended, I was like, let me see how it began, and then I went back and I watched
Oh, so not that long ago.
not
Well,
that
that's
long
very
ago.
recent.
But like it's also like the thing with The Good Wife and The Good Fight is sometimes you can have it on and it can be good background TV. So it's good. Like
Yeah.
this time, it's like I'm watching and paying attention, and it's it's still interesting. Like the show premiered in 2009, and I think it still holds up,
Yeah,
barring
for
some
sure.
like awkward technology references. But
Oh
yeah.
my gosh. Flip phones are back, ladies and gentlemen. Flip phones are back. Yeah, I found this very, entertaining, and it's fun to watch a show because this is my first rewatch of The Good Wife. I would dare say I haven't watched the pilot since 2009. So it was very
Oh.
interesting to go back and see how it all started because there are definitely some things I didn't remember. There's definitely some things I was like, oh, that's interesting. And the introduction of all these characters, I mean, the introduction of Kalinda. So it was very fun to go back and see how it all started.
Yeah, if you're listening to this podcast, we're going to assume you know what The Good Wife is. But
Yeah.
if not, it is the show that kind of started the what we like to call the good verse of legal drama on CBS when it comes to The Good Wife, The Good Fight, and then Elspeth. And it's all about we'll talk more in depth as we're going through our recap. But basically, if you were going to write like a TV guide, remember those TV guides? If you're going to
Yeah.
write a TV guide summary, like it's just like a Chicago law firm hires the wife of disgraced state's attorney. It's already setting us up for drama.
Yeah, I mean the opening of the show was very impactful of its own, and it dives right into its premise. It's not like
We're
we're
not hiding
introduced
it.
to we're not introduced to Alicia and Peter as a happy couple, and then the news drops. Like we're being dropped right into the moment that where this press conference of that we've seen so much highlighted in the media of the disgraced politician sitting there and either denying or apologizing for whatever wrongdoing he's been held accountable for. Meanwhile, the person, the quote unquote the good wife, is just standing there, kind of having to at least look like she's in support of her husband when he's done so much wrong to her and to other people. So it was a big topic back in 2009 because that was an era of where this was a prevalent thing that was happening. I think probably less so now. I think people are more held accountable on their own. Maybe there's just not much of it anymore, I would say. It's not as rampant as it was back then. But back then in 2009, it was a topic that someone would go, you know what, let's make a show about this archetype of this person that we've been seeing in the news so much lately. So I think that's a very interesting way to open the show.
Yeah, and this is before the Me Too movement. So this is
Yeah.
before accountability was kind of part of the conversation. And also it's before notes app apologies. So you really
Yes.
didn't have any other way other than having a press conference to really,
Back then it
kind
was
of clear your name.
back then it was like an AOL email that you could send. It's like,
Yeah.
here's my AOL
You put
email
your away
apology.
message. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
My AOL message. Yeah. That was funny. Yeah.
And also during this time in the land of Chicago, this takes place in Chicago. We were on the precipice of sending our second governor of the state to jail. So when it comes to corrupt politicians, Chicago does have its own history with that in general, but the state of Illinois is not shy of that as well. So the fact that this show is placed here as a Chicagoan is always like really close to
Aren't you
home
just
for
aren't
me.
you so proud? Marissa, aren't you so
So
proud to
proud.
be
We're so proud. Like, I mean, we get good. We have all the other Chicago shows that also put us in a great light. The Fire, the Med, like
yeah.
all of those.
All the things. Although
Yeah,
you get your good and your bad, you get your life saving,
yeah.
occupations, and you also got your corrupt politicians. It all balances out in the
It,
wash,
it's a balance, and your beef. You get
Yeah.
your you get it all. So
Oh
yeah,
man.
I'm excited to kind of revisit that time in history, having been here during that time as well.
Yeah, I mean, so Marissa, we're a new podcast, right?
We are.
And luckily, like some podcasts, we finally have a sponsor. Our sponsor this week is alkyl ectylene. Let's see.
Goodness.
Let me read this ad copy.
Okay.
Need help for your aching joints when plotting a life insurance murder scam? Alkyl ectylene will help ease your trigger finger pain. Disclaimer: may be easily transferred to your victim's dead body. Make sure you clean thoroughly after said murders.
Wow,
Wow.
what a
Alkyl
targeted
ectylene
ad. That was
Actually,
like
thank you so much. I mean, they were very prevalent in this episode, so I think they knew that that was coming, so they made sure to get us to advertise their product. I don't know if they want to be advising people to use their product in this way, but hey, get that money where you can get it from. I guess.
for legal reasons that it is fake. If you
How dare
could
you,
not tell.
Marissa? The people
For
from
legal
Alco
reasons. For
Echelene,
legal reasons.
the legal department of Alco Echelene will be calling us for for a refund of our ad money. How dare you say that? Oh man,
Yes, I am very excited that we have plot specific partners in
yeah,
advertising.
it's great.
Do you want to get into it? Do we just want to
Let's get into
talk
it.
it
Let's
out?
talk about it. I'm excited. I'm excited about the episode. I wasn't sure how I was gonna feel about it, if it was gonna feel the same way, and I gotta say I felt great about it. So let's get into it. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of the show.
All right. Well, you had talked about it before, but the show does just like straight up open with a press conference where we see State's Attorney Peter Florek, played by Chris Noth, who every time I
Didn't
see
age
him,
great.
I
Didn't age
just,
great.
but also like the characters he played during this time, like Sex and the City is still on TV. Like
Mhm.
just want like I have a visceral reaction to seeing Chris Noth on my screen just because he always plays like people that are not nice to women. So I'm just
Mhm.
like,
Seems
hi.
life maybe some needs to imitate art. I don't know.
Yeah. I was like, oh, it's you again. But Peter Florek is the state attorney having a press conference where he's basically saying, hey, I've been sentenced to jail for trading sexual favors and abusive power charges. And there we see Alicia just like standing there, his wife standing next to him, taking it all in, kind of processing as it goes. She's so overwhelmed that she's focusing on like a thread that's
Yeah.
on Peter's sleeve. Like this is rocking her world. It's like finally hitting her, like the weight of everything that is happening. And so the press conference ends abruptly, and we see them go. I don't know. It looked like the basement of a hospital, but
Maybe like a
they're
hotel ballroom, and they were like going through the
yeah.
bowels of the hotel. Maybe, yeah.
That makes more sense. But when we're there, Alicia stops walking. Peter rushes forward and she just stops walking and she sees all of the cameras and she's just like, what? This is my life now. I thought this was a great way to kind of show where these two characters are. Like Peter is rushing forward, wanting to move forward, trying to get past this, and Alicia's just stuck and paralyzed by what's going on. And then, of course, Peter's like, "Oh, don't worry, everything's gonna be okay." And Alicia's like, "Yeah, well, because I'm gonna slap you across the face."
I
Wha-bam.
said, do it again, Alicia, do it again. Hit him, kick him, get him out of the ground, kick his stomach, do something else, do it. But yeah, I think that's a great thing that you point out. Where like Peter is rushing ahead, he's ready to tackle his career ambition, his career like he's trying to get his career back on track. Meanwhile, Alicia is more thinking about their relationship and what this has done to her children. And so they're on two very different tracks about what they're thinking about in the moment. Like, at least you don't care about your career. She doesn't care about your ambitions right now. She's worried about her and her life and her kids, and rightfully so. And Peter's like, oh, don't worry about it, babe. We're going to appellate court. Things gonna get back to normal. Like, no, like things will never like you have, as she talks to Jackie later, is like, I trusted him for 15 years. I didn't think I would
Yes.
ever have to question him, but now everything has been flipped and turned upside down. So she's in these moments where she's so overwhelmed. She's just how are my kids going to recover? How am I going to recover? How is our life going to recover? And all Peter could think about is, how am I going to get out of this jam so I can hopefully go back to being the state's attorney? Like, that's all he's thinking about at this moment.
Well, and she's also thinking about, and this is only because I've watched the series before, so spoilers, but really good context clues if you're if you, think about what she sacrificed during this entire time. And like, she sacrificed her job, her career, because we learn,
Mhm.
like, the next scene we see is her going back to work, and we learn throughout this episode that the last time she was in a courtroom was 13 years ago. So she has put her life on pause, put her life on hold, while Peter's out there basically doing whatever the heck he wants, with drunk with power, trying to, make it as a politician. And she's like, I sacrificed all of this for what? I didn't get any fulfillment for what? So she's the good wife, but she's also a very angry, and rightfully so, wife
She's the
as
good
well.
wife. She's the good wife and the wronged wife.
Yes, very much so. We only get another like brief interaction between Alicia and Peter in this episode, where Alicia goes to visit Peter in jail. And of course, like, Peter is still not thinking that Alicia is like mad at him in any
Yeah.
way, shape, or form. He's like, "Don't worry, the abusive power charges, I'm gonna get those taken care of." Like, it's, and she's like, "Do you think that's what I'm worried about? Do you think I'm worried about like the legal implications of this? You slept with other women. There are videos of you doing this on the internet. What do you think that's doing to our family?" And the coverage that's being, like, it's not just the internet, it's the news.
It's everywhere. Many times on this episode, it's wherever Alicia's turning, it's right in her face. So it's very tough for her to deal with. And Peter just doesn't understand the gravity of how it's affecting Alicia. I mean, big surprise. I think this is going to be a running theme throughout the
Yeah.
whole series of The Good Wife, where this man just does not get it.
Yeah, he just is going to use the system to get himself out of his pickle. Basically, a bad choice of words
Don't
in
say
this
his pickle.
situation.
No, not his pickle. We're not trying to. We're not trying to think about his pickle in these
Try
moments.
to get him
Okay,
out of this situation. Out of this situation.
we can see enough of his pickle in those sex tapes. Okay.
Right. Well, as we talked about, Alicia has put her life on hold for this man. So she's decided, you know what, enough's enough. I'm going to go back to work. So the next scene we kind of see after the press conference is 6 months later. So we're establishing our timeline 6 months after the press conference that's happened. And Alicia is sitting in a conference room waiting for a meeting to start. And she's already in the wrong place at the wrong
Alicia,
time.
she's probably like, damn, I'm here early. Like, I'm really killing it on my first day. I'm early, ready to work. She's like, where is everybody else? She's probably just like, man, I'm just an early riser, I guess, around this law firm.
Yeah. And so she's finally told by someone, "Hey, you're in the wrong conference room. You got to go upstairs." So she runs upstairs, and she can kind of, like, she's in a sea of lawyers. Like, this is
Mhm.
not just a small firm. This is definitely a very large firm, and this is where we are introduced as the audience to the law firm of Stern, Lockhart, and Gardner. Now, paying attention to the name of this law firm is important throughout the series as
Yeah,
a
very
whole.
interesting.
But right now we are at Stern, Lockhart, and Gardner, and we're introduced to a bunch of characters. So I thought we could kind of talk through the environment and the characters that we see. She is walking and talking real fast through this. Not only is this a very large law firm, but it is a fast moving, fast paced law firm. There's not a lot of downtime in the situation. So that's just kind of the vibe that we're at right now.
Yeah, I like how, when that meeting is over, like, I don't even think anyone noticed that she wasn't even there. So
Right.
that's how chaos it is, that you could probably just not be there, no one would even know.
Yeah, exactly. But she is there, and she is there because of a man named Will Gardner, who played by
Will
Josh
Gardner.
Charles, who has been a movie crush of mine since Dead Poet Society. Like Josh Charles, man, thank you for being on television.
I really enjoyed Josh Charles. I did watch Sport Night back in the
Yeah,
day, where that was a great show. I mean, this is what I probably know him most for. He is a Baltimorean, so he is from my neck of the woods. I
yeah,
follow him
yeah.
on Twitter and everything. He talks about all the sports teams I love. So I'm a big Josh Charles fan. And like by the end of I'll just say by the end of his run on the show, I really loved the character and the actor at the same time. So I was so happy to be reintroduced to Will and all of his like his witty charm. I mean, you can definitely see why Will Gardner is like, a ladies' man. He's got all the wit and charm you might need.
The kids might say he has the Riz.
He's even throwing a baseball around in his
Yeah,
opening scene. Like, look at me,
yeah.
I'm so cool. I can throw a baseball in a big old meeting because I'm a cool sports fan.
Well, and I can also do that while telling you kiss your weekends goodbye because we have to work on things. So he's
Mm.
definitely, thinking about the business, thinking about the law all at the same time. I'm excited to hang out with Will a little bit more now that we're doing this rewatch. During that meeting, it told to Alicia that she's going to be taking on pro bono work. Pro bono work is something that most law firms will dedicate like 5% of their time with. And it currently is sitting with someone near and dear to this podcast's heart, the one and
Oh yeah.
only Christine Baranski, who is playing Diane Lockhart. And this is our first introduction to Diane Lockhart. How'd you feel seeing it again?
I felt great because we love Diane here. Like she is our OG. She is I mean,
Yeah.
spoiler alert for the whole kit and caboodle. She's the only person that has stuck around for everything. I mean, minus an Elsbeth, but for
So
every
far.
good show. Yeah, good wife, good fight. She is our OG. She is the one true person to this franchise. And seeing her again and all her, and let me just say, seeing this again and seeing how young all of our principals
Mm.
are, opposed to where we left the series, because we're going to spend like 8 or so years with this series. I was like, wow, they all look so freaking young. And that includes Diane too, where she's as we leave her in the good fight, she's much older than she is here now. And it was so great to see her in all her glory, and all her references to Hillary Clinton, which shows that she will never change throughout the whole of this franchise.
Yeah, and I remember when the show first came out, I was like, Christine Baranski's on this. I mean, obviously, 2009, we all were younger. My exposure to
Yeah.
Christine Baranski was not as vast as it is now, but I just remember her from Adam's Family too, and her also being like a comedic character. And
Uh,
so I was very intrigued that she had taken this role as like in a drama capacity, but I loved the character building that the show does right off the bat with her. She mentors women until they can compete with her. Like she's like, I'm with you until you're against me.
yeah, I mean,
And
I love that jab from Will. He's like, Diane, this is just like you. You mentor women until they get a little too competitive with you, then you cut them off. I was like, wow. And, I don't know if that. Do you think that stays true to Diane throughout the whole of the? I mean, we've definitely seen where she can get very, very, very competitive.
I
But
think it's
yeah,
more true in The Good Wife than it is in The Good Fight, but there are good reasons for that as her character develops. But yeah, like right now, like we have to also think about the timing of this. The women's role in this, the workplace is, you have to fight for yourself no matter what. There is no women helping women culture. There is no like, so what Diane is doing is quote unquote
well,
groundbreaking, but it's the allyship that the women had available to them at their time. But once they start competing with each other, like then it's like you or the men. And so what is
yeah.
Diane supposed to do?
It's like,
So
I'll help you, but you gotta stay under me. Like, you
yes,
can be right under me, but you cannot, like, I
because
am the woman here. Like, that's
yes,
that you
because there's
can't
only
be the
room
woman.
for one.
Yeah,
There's
I
only
am
room
the
for one
woman
woman.
because there's only
Yeah.
gonna be one here, and it's gotta be me. So yeah, you're right. Like, definitely the roles for women in that environment at that time led to a very cutthroat environment. You
Yeah.
could
And
definitely say the same for minorities as well. I mean,
yeah.
it was that time. It was just that era. And I mean, it's striking to me as we are introduced to the good wife how how do I say this?
Say
How
it.
Caucasian it
Yes.
is, especially, and that shows the growth in the landscape of TV and of the Kings, right? Because by the time we get to Good Fight, there might be more minorities on that show than there are, majorities, let's say. So
Yeah.
it just shows an interesting evolution from the Kings and from, I guess, TV in general, about how when this show started, it was very, very Caucasian. We did have our one person of color, but it was. I just found that very, very standout, like a very standout thing about the introduction of this show.
Yeah, and I'm glad we have the foresight to kind of see how much, or the
Mhm.
hindsight to see how much things have changed since
Yeah, and
then,
how in the
and
good
how
fight
much
they
they
really.
also haven't.
Yeah, well, yes, and how, like, even when we get to the good fight, how much they call out that disparity and how much things have changed in that industry as well as in the show itself.
This is why I love this show so much, because they talk about these
Truly,
things.
yeah.
But yes, as you mentioned, Diane Lockhart also loves Hillary Clinton. She's always going to be like voting for Hillary, talking about Hillary. Hillary, again, I think was in a similar position as Diane of being the woman that was in the room in
Well, and
certain
she was a
situations.
similar position as Alicia,
She was a
right?
good
Like,
wife. Yeah,
yeah.
she was a good wife. And Diane also has her dog Justice, which great name for a dog, but I don't remember Justice that well.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Justice is a pilot only appearance because I don't remember in the 10 or so years we've gotten of Diane Lockhart. I don't remember any other Justice appearances.
Oh, I don't know. The show could prove me wrong, but I was
Definitely, yeah,
like,
good.
oh, I forgot about you. We're also introduced to another person I know we are a fan of here, Carrie Argos, played by Matt Zurchi.
Zuckery,
Yeah,
Zuckery, I
yeah,
think something like
sure.
that.
But he's from Gilmore Girls, and like
Oh,
that's where he's from.
I
In
was
my
not a Gilmore fan, so this is my
okay,
first introduction to this actor. And I
it's
mean,
a better
listen,
one.
and again, Carrie will evolve quite a bit through this good wife journey he's going on here. But the schmarmy prick of a guy we see here in this first episode is just is really fun and really interesting to see how the competition between he and Alicia will go throughout the years. This was a very good introduction to that dynamic.
Yeah, because the situation is both Carrie and Alicia are basically fighting for the same spot in 6 months. One of them will get a permanent position. And Carrie has a head up because he knows about this situation. And Alicia's like,
Mhm.
wait, what are you talking about? What's going on? And they share the same assistant by the name of Sonia. Did she look familiar to you, Jason?
Bruh, I was like, Gillian Jacobs? She was on this show, which again, I think Sonya is probably a pilot episode only character, but in 2009, we didn't know who Gillian Jacobs was. So she was another face in the crowd. But now here in 2024, we see her like, wow, Gillian Jacobs, community fame was in this show. That was crazy. Like I was, oh my God. And it's gonna be so fun going through the show and seeing and having those aha moments of being that Leonardo DiCaprio meme on the couch pointing at the screen like, oh my
Yes.
God, I know who that is. Like
Yes.
that's that guy or girl from that thing. So that was a very fun thing to spy in the episode.
Well, yeah, and there's a couple more of those instances left in this episode. So
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the great parts of watching a good show, is seeing everybody who can pop up here and there. Well,
Just talk about the carry of it all. I
yeah,
love how
yeah,
just like he's just like, oh, you got put on the pro bono case, huh? I'm taking this other case over here. They got me, they got me going on
yeah.
some big stuff over here, but you got their pro bono. It's all I just love how crappy, like how like schmarmy and crappy he is. It's
And
such
he's
a good
also
creep.
like, I already did pro bono stuff. I worked for the Innocence Project. Like, I'm over it. I'm going over.
Yeah,
Like,
he flexes his nepotism muscle a little bit. He's like, yeah, my dad knows this guy over the Innocent Project. I worked over there. It's like, wow, you really are just kind of a dick right now. And again, we'll talk about it as we go through the series, but the evolution of Carrie is definitely a big plot point in the Good Wife series.
yeah, like trust us, we are fans for a reason. It's just like right
Hmm.
now he's baby Carrie.
Yes,
Like,
yeah, baby Carrie is such a good word for her because he looks like such a young kid in this pilot episode. It's so interesting.
yeah. Well, and I saved the last character we were introduced to, at least in the introduction to the law firm. I saved her for last because she is one of our everyone's a favorite, but like she's like one of our favorites. And I'm talking of the one and only Kalinda Sharma, also known as Archie Punjabi.
Yeah,
What was
and
it like
listen,
seeing her
it was
again?
well, I can't say everything I was thinking because this is a family friendly podcast versus
Yeah, don't lose
I'll
our
leave
sponsors.
I'll leave yeah, I'll leave some of my comments to myself. But it was great because listen, Kalinda has a special place in our hearts because that was kind of the touchstone to where we discovered we both had a love for the Good Wife. Because
Yeah.
as legend is told, Archie Punjabi was on a show that we covered for our former podcast network, Post Show Recaps, RIP, that we covered the show Hijack with Idris Elba, a year or so ago, and Archie Punjabi was on the show. And so when we both saw the first episode, I think one of us mentioned, "Oh, I love me some Archie Punjabi." He's Kalinda. She's like, "Oh, you like Kalinda the Good Wife? I like the Good Wife. Oh my god, you both like the Good Wife." So Kalinda will always hold a special place in both of our
Yes.
hearts, and you can all thank Archie Punjabi being on Hijack for being the reason you're getting this podcast.
Like for
Um,
the total of like 10 minutes she was in that show.
Yes, exactly. And for the nothing that she did in that whole show, every episode we come on before the podcast, we'd be like, "Why are they doing more with Kalinda?" We'd always call her Kalinda in
Yeah.
my notes because they didn't even give her character an actual name until like halfway through the season. I would just be
Yeah.
writing Kalinda in my notes the whole time while taking notes on Hijack. So yeah, Kalinda is definitely a fan favorite for good reason. She is going to be. She is just the one in this episode. She's a badass in every sense of the word. So she's a very fun character and just a sea of fun characters. So I mean, she's definitely a standout here. She's a standout in the first episode. She's a standout in the series.
Yes. She is the in-house investigator for the law firm. So she's the one going out there collecting facts as close to a legal way that she can to get things for the cases. And it's what's also interesting about her character is her character worked for Peter
Mm-hmm.
before. So Kalinda and Alicia sort of know of each other. I don't think they know each other, but they know of each other and have opinions of each other before they start working together. It was also,
Well,
oh, go ahead.
I don't think Alicia knows who Kalinda is. I think Kalinda definitely knows who Alicia is, but
Yes.
I don't think Alicia knew of Kalinda in that way. So I think
All she
mostly Kalinda's
knew
new to her.
was that Kalinda was fired by Peter.
Mm-hmm.
And
And with Alicia's brain going in overdrive about all the things Peter has done because she's now open to this new world of who like she could be looking at every woman that Peter knows. Like, did Peter sleep with this woman? Did he sleep with this woman? Is this part of why she was fired because she was sleeping with him? Blah blah blah. So I think that was a very interesting opening dynamic of these two.
yes. And one of the things I always think of when I think of Kalinda and Alicia is them getting drinks at the bar. And it was so interesting to me that they show up in this first episode at the bar. And this will become important and something I know Jason and I will be focusing on as we continue
Yeah,
experiencing this
it
show.
was so ironic to be seeing that, because people fans of The Good Wife will know that a barroom scene is a very interesting moment in way later in the series about
Like,
how that moment came to be. Well, for
it's
those that aren't,
lore. It's like,
it's a very famous lore in the Good Wife universe and the behind the scenes of The Good Wife.
yeah.
So it was
And
very interesting to see that, and that's this first episode.
I was like, "Oh, it started here. Okay."
Yeah.
Like let's watch this version. I would say if you have not watched The Good Wife before or you do not know what we are alluding to, just keep your eyes on the bar room scenes with those two characters as we go through, and we will point out when it is important. But yeah, Kalinda's the best. I'm so excited that I mean, it's not that she's back. It's like I turned on the TV and she was there. So I'm glad that she was there.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Alicia. So Alicia gets to, know her new work peeps, but then she's given a case like right off the bat by Diane. So she's assigned to pro bono work. She goes to meet Diane. Diane is defending a woman who is accused of murder. Her name is Jennifer. She's a second grade teacher. Basically, the original case was hung, like the jury was hung, so there's a retrial, and so Alicia's given this case, and there's a hearing right away. Like they waste no
Yeah.
time going
She's
out the
thrown
door.
right into the fire. Thrown right into the fire her first day.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see. I liked how Alicia was able to really like show that she was learning how to ride a bike again. Like it was asking all these new questions. She interviewed the jurors, tried to find out, why the jury was hung, all of these things, which was interesting to me that the reason why it was hung was juror 9 just kind of like held out and just because of a gut feeling. Like there was no evidence. So Alicia had like nothing to really go on. It was just intuition in this case of like something's wrong and this juror wasn't going to change their mind. So I have to start from
Yeah,
scratch.
it was interesting how, because Alicia was told it was a 6-6 hung jury, and then she goes to interview these people. I'm like, oh no, yeah, I didn't really think she was innocent. I thought she was guilty, but I just did it to get out of there. And then that lady, the one juror that actually voted, innocent. So yeah, it's got a good feeling, and she said she liked Diane as well. So it's like, Diane kind of got her to she trusted Diane, so she said innocent. So I thought it was a very interesting and a fun little montage of Alicia going to interview all these jury members.
And it was also interesting because I think one of those jury's members thought she was working for the state's attorney's office because
Yeah.
her husband was the state's attorney. So Alicia's facing a lot of challenges by going back to work. When it comes to the crime itself, Jason, help me kind of recap it. We've got a story that doesn't necessarily match up to like surveillance tape
Yeah.
that's going
So
on.
Jennifer, goes to talk to her ex-husband, Michael. What was the last name of these people? Michael something,
I just
about
remember Michael.
a custody arrangement with their children. And as they are meeting up to discuss this, as they're meeting out in like a parking lot or a parking garage, apparently someone in a red pickup truck comes by and assassinates Michael. And Jennifer is to blame for this because, I mean, obviously it's got to be Jennifer, right? She is the aggrieved ex-wife. Michael has moved on with a new wife, and he maybe wants custody of the kids, and that's the reason they think that Jennifer might have had a motive here. But there is no real evidence to back up Jennifer's claim because the security guard in the parking garage says, I didn't see any red pickup truck. There's no evidence of the truck on security cams. There's no evidence this red pickup truck even existed. So Jennifer's case is very suspect. So it looks like she's guilty, but it's our team's mission, Alicia, Kalinda, everybody, to prove that Jennifer is innocent in this and figure out how, if what Jennifer's saying is real, how did this not get picked up by security cams? What's going on? So that is our crew's mission in this case.
Yes. I thought it was interesting that it turns out that this case was put in front of Judge Costa, who, uh, like we saw in Elsbeth, the detective was always changing, right? Like we always had a
Mhm.
detective changing. I did not put two and two. I started watching this again of like, oh my gosh, the judge is the ever changing character. Obviously, I know that because I've watched the series, but we only have one judge in this instance. And this judge is Judge Costa, played by David Paymer, who was on Mrs. Maisel and a bunch of other things. He's like one of those guys where like you see his face and he's like, oh, that
Definitely.
guy.
Yeah.
And he is a judge that hates Peter Florek. So not only do we have the crime that you just described going on, we also have Alicia facing a judge that hates her husband. We have DAs that notice and also like go talk to Alicia saying, "Hey, I work for the new DA." Like,
Yeah. Because our old one's in jail. You might know who he is. He might be your
yeah.
husband. And the attorney trying the case, Matan, I was like, it opened up such a memory like trunk for me. I was like, Matan's gonna be in this show a lot, and I was like, I
Oh
totally
yeah.
forgot. I totally forgot he even existed until he showed up here. I was like, oh, that's right, he's a character on this show. He's another one that's kind of like he pops up on procedurals as like a one or two episode character thing. He's got a memorable face. So I was like, oh, I'm glad that guy's back. So he's definitely she's also trying to kind of intimidate Alicia a little bit using this kind of knowledge that he has about it. So I think that was a very fun interplay there we had.
It was like a lot of bit. Like he was intimidating her a lot of like, I'm gonna cozy up to you, and then I am going to object to pretty much every single thing you say.
Yeah, and like you said, it was interesting to see Alicia try to relearn how to go about a court case because it has been so long. She doesn't know how to phrase her questioning so that it fits the format of a courtroom because she's really hitting the facts as she wants to, as like she's if you've ever been in a courtroom courtroom during a court case. You know you can't speak plainly. You have to format your questions in a certain way. So as she's trying to answer questions, it's just objection sustained, objection sustained. So she can barely get any words out. So it does not fill our our defendant Jennifer with much faith in Alicia in the moment.
Well, especially because she was used to Diane, and I'm sure
Yeah,
like so it's a switcheroo on her right away of like, oh my gosh, I have a new lawyer, great,
yeah, I
great,
did. I did love.
and she doesn't know what she's doing.
Yeah, but I did love how afterwards, Alicia is giving Jennifer some advice of like, because Alicia is able to get Jennifer out on her own recognizance since this is a new court case and everything. So she's able to get Jennifer released. So she gives Jennifer some good advice, like don't turn on TV, go to
Yes,
sleep, put on nice clothes, put on makeup. It never gets easier, but you get better at it. And she's speaking from experience at this point because it's been at least 6 months since that press conference. So she's having to live this life as well of trying to get back to a normal situation when you're in the middle of turmoil.
yes, great point. And we also see how she's like not used to working in a group. So she was given a strategy by Diane, like, hey, here's your case, run with the strategy, bada bing, bada boom, you'll be done. But as she was doing more uncovering and learning about things like the dog hair with the arthritic medicine on it and things like that, it was changing her strategy. And she just went ahead and changed it, but didn't tell the people back at the law
Yeah.
firm. So this is kind of setting her up as like someone who goes rogue. And we see that her leadership is being called into question. They might pull her off a first chair. They might, put Carrie in instead of her. So she's really got to kind of pivot and get back on her toes to maintain her reputation at the law firm because there's a lot of pressure on her.
I love how they went about, because I mean, in this pilot episode at least, Alicia and Kalinda are almost like a crime fighting duo. It's like it was almost reminiscent of Elsbeth and Kaya from
Yes.
from Elsbeth. And like they're going out on this thing together, kind of teaming up to figure out where this went wrong. Why is security footage? I loved Alicia and Kalinda out in the whatever security lot they were in, trying to figure out what's going on with the surveillance camera. Kalinda fixes up her shirt.
Yeah.
She says, sometimes boobs are better than subpoenas. So it's like, okay. It's like, all right. That was an interesting way. And that's how Kalinda goes in and like acts like a kind of acts up her, oh, what's that? I don't know what
Yeah.
that is, in order to kind of get in good with the security guard to get what they need.
It was Kalinda's version of the bend and snap from Legally Blonde. Like she was like doing her own feminine charms to get what she needed. And that's the type, it was a great nod to the audience to say like, this is who this character is. This is where she's going to like, these are the lines she's going to push to get the information that she needs.
Yeah, we will see. Kalinda will push some boundaries to get what
Yeah.
she needs of the whole series of the Good Wife. And, I kind of love how it was almost divide and conquer too. As Kalinda's dealing with security guard, Alicia takes over like kind of like the office manager and talks to her,
Yeah.
and that's where the office manager says, that security guard, he's so lazy, he's always sleeping on the job. So then that's just like chin stroke, like, oh, that's gonna be important.
I loved the trick that Alicia played on that character because she basically paid for two
Mhm.
pops out of the pop machine and was like, "Oh, this came out extra. Do you
I
want
love
it?
I love the Midwesterner in you, Marissa, calling it pop.
It's pop. What is it? Soda? No, soda comes in a 2 liter.
Soda? Say it
No,
again. Soda?
it's not soda.
Around my parts, it's soda.
Even
Uh,
okay, like, but soda is in a 2 liter container. A pop
no,
is
soda's
in a can.
because you pop the top. Is that the thing?
Yes,
Marissa, that doesn't even make any
it
sense.
makes
Come
sense.
on.
Listeners, write in. Let us know your thoughts on pop versus soda.
Baltimore versus Chicago. Soda versus pop. The great debate.
I, I'm sure. Isn't there a legal show in Baltimore? What was?
A
I'm
legal
sure
show?
in Baltimore we could cover. We might expand our own universe. I don't know.
I mean, there's The Wire, of course, but
But yeah. Well, another challenge that Alicia is facing while she's trying to solve this case is the fact that there is a new state's attorney. in the situation by the name of Glenn Childs, and he is also a familiar face. He
Mm-hmm.
is the actor Titus Welvier, who you may know from a gazillion places. If you're listening to this podcast and have followed us from other places, you probably know this person from Lost as playing the man
The
in the
Man in Black.
black. Yeah, Man in
Yeah,
Black. And then he's also been on Suits, and I would not be my father's daughter if I did not mention that he was on Bosch.
yeah. I
So
mean, he's the titular Bosch, right?
yeah, he's
Yeah.
he's he's you'll know him when you see him. And he basically like confronts Alicia in the hallway and says like, I know Peter is using you to kind of get what he needs to get his case appealed, and trying to like give you information, because that is one thing which we'll talk about in a minute, that Peter does give Alicia some information here. And you know, Glenn Childs is like, don't become collateral damage. And Alicia snaps back. Like the response she gave, I had to write it like she's like, the moment you showed that tape of my husband so that everyone could see it is the moment I became collateral damage. You may have dealt with my husband before, but you've never dealt with an angry woman. And I was like, yes,
Get him,
Alicia.
girl. Get him, girl. Get him. I
Yeah.
mean, that's like that. You can get that to the range of Juliana Margulies, right? Because we see so much different emotion from her in this one episode. I mean, never mind the whole series, but this one episode, she's gone from vulnerable to on the attack to giving advice out to an investigator. She's had so many hats on in this just one episode. I think that really speaks to what Juliana Margulies can do in any capacity here. I mean, I think probably her most famous role was on ER back in the day, but then
Also
this
in
kind of gave
Chicago.
her also what
Chicago. Also like
set
she
in
like
Chicago?
yeah.
Oh, I didn't know about ER, but I mean they got ER and Chicago Hope. I mean, is there any
Yes.
other place you can have a hospital other than Chicago?
No, we own hospitals.
No, Seattle owns hospitals or Grey's Anatomy.
Oh,
I'm
that's
sorry.
fair.
I'm
That's fair.
sorry,
That's fair.
Marissa.
That's
I'm
fair. That's
sorry.
fair.
But yeah, I mean, we know Juliana Margulies from ER. Now this is her kind of second life where she makes another name for herself in this, and just to see what she can do was really really fun throughout this first episode.
Yeah. Yeah, she brought it. Um Another thing I just want to talk about is how this case kind of came to a close. So the security guard was lazy, and Alicia again has this is a trope I do not like in any form of media, but she has her kids help her figure out technology.
Yeah.
So she brings the tape back and has her son kind of like help her navigate through this footage, because I don't know if fast forward and rewind are just too difficult of a concept.
So complicated.
I
So
don't know.
complicated.
I don't know, but she basically finds out that like the security guard just used the same tape for the different nights of the incident. So, and she did that by timing a plastic bag. Those plastic bags, man, they'll get you. The plastic bag was showing up at the same time of the night on both days. So this was a big part of her case. And then she also brought the second wife on the stand to kind of talk through the life insurance of it all. And then also the fact that Peter had given Alicia this information that there was evidence that was pitted or not included in evidence, that included a dog hair that had, sorry, sponsors, what's it called?
Alkyl
Ectyl
ethylene.
ectyline on it. And
Hey, Marissa, you got to get it right, or we're not going to
okay,
get our we're not going to get our
yeah.
full check.
So the pitted evidence showed that there was a dog hair with alkyl ectylate on it, and this also tied into the fact that the second wife's brother worked at a dog track. So that's basically giving probable cause that her brother was involved and not Jennifer in this case. So the case ends up being dismissed because
Yeah,
the state opened another case.
yeah, man. Alicia had one of those, she had kind of an Elsbeth moment, right? Like
She
she's
did.
she's talking about the case. She's like, I think the second wife probably pretty mad if she found out that the first wife is meeting with her husband. Maybe we should look into that. It's like, oh, you just kind of had an epiphany out of nowhere, but hey, it works for me because it really got things going. I love how they interviewed the detective on the stand, and they were just like,
Mm-hmm.
he was like I love how the pitted evidence got brought up in court, and it's like everyone's kind of shocked, like, where did this come from? Like, we didn't think you were gonna pull that out of your hat. I mean, and it's crazy how almost everyone's mad at Alicia for finding this evidence. Diane's mad because Diane's like, listen, you were supposed to just follow the path that I laid out so that we can get another hung jury because they're not going to try the third time. So we could have got this dismissed that way. So I don't know who you think you are, being all, smart and getting stuff and get new evidence. Okay. And
Well,
I
and
love
Will
how,
calls her out on that.
yeah, and yeah, then that's when Will says, you just mad because she found something that you didn't. And so I thought that was very a very fun thing because I mean Alicia even gives it to Diane a little bit, and she's like, you know, I found the one juror that said she was innocent, and Diane's like, no, no, you're wrong. It was a 6-6, and Alicia's like, no, girl, that's what you thought, but that's not the truth because I did the actual legwork and found out some stuff. And Diane's like, oh crap. So I loved how Alicia was able to serve it to Diane like that, and I loved how even though Zach did help her with the video, she was the one that discovered this. So I loved
Yeah.
how they portrayed Alicia as such a innovative thinker, and how she really kind of cracked this. I mean, as much as we harped on Elsbeth for being like an investigator, she's supposed to be a lawyer. I mean, Alicia was almost like that in this episode for sure.
Yeah, Alicia, I don't think we haven't seen her at a crime scene yet, but yes, she's got Elsbeth tendencies for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure. Yeah. So yeah,
Well,
I thought the case itself was very fun and a very interesting way to wrap it up.
I also like that Felicia, because
Bye,
Florek and
Felicia.
Alicia didn't get a win right away. Like it, I mean, it was a win that the case was dismissed, but it wasn't like in favor of the defendant or
Mm.
anything like that. Like it showed that she's still gaining her legs, her lawyer legs again.
I also enjoy the fact that we kind of gave Alicia a soft case to come in on because we'll see in our good wife journey that there's going to be some cases that our heroes are going to try where the defendant isn't necessarily innocent. Like they're going to have
Yeah.
to bend some moral boundaries. And I liked how in this first case that introduced us to Alicia, she was able to fight for the good guys in this one and reunite a mother with her daughter and all that stuff. So it was good that they kind of introduced her into this case that showed, the law world isn't so bad because we will definitely get some cases that are going to test moral boundary, test whether they should be taking these cases or not. And so, for the introduction of a show, I'm glad that they gave us a good case to come in on.
Yeah, and it also should be noted that the firm itself is like a civil
Mhm.
lawsuit firm, so they're usually not dealing with criminal cases or anything like that. So we're going to get to see
For now.
both sides of justice system, not all
Mhm.
sides, I guess, but both realms in that way as well. So
Yeah.
it'll be good to talk about. I wanted to just spend some time here at the end of the podcast, Jason, just talking about the family of it all. Throughout the episode, we were introduced to Alicia's kids, one of which loves ringtones. Ringtones, again,
Remember
2009.
ringtones? Remember ringtones, y'all? And how you would buy a ringtone from iTunes for like 99 cents and you had to figure out how to put it on your phone. And that was brand new back in the day. It was brand new to put on a little tone on your flip phone or a flip phone, y'all. And you'd have like your fun little specified ringtones. And I'm kind of shocked at how the ringtone industry has really kind of died in a way. Because I mean, you can personalize ringtones, but I don't think many of us do it nowadays.
Yeah, I before I got like my smartwatch where it vibrates on my wrist that something is happening because I'm like everyone had a different ringtone because I needed to know like do I run to my phone? Do I not run to my phone? Like who is contacting me? But then I got
Is it
lazy.
a marketer? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're really in a vibrate culture right now, right? We're in like we're everything needs to be kind of silent. Like we can
Or even like no like I will look at my notifications when I look at my phone and that's
Mhm.
like I look at my phone enough that it won't be 3 days before I see your notification.
And we don't really call anymore. We just text
Yeah.
nowadays. Like it's not
Or
really like a
we text before we call. Like,
yeah.
is
Can I
now an
call you?
okay?
Can I call slash FaceTime you? Is it a good time? We didn't just go willy nilly. We don't willy nilly go calling people anymore. We gotta check first.
Yes. Yeah. So that was fun to see. And I loved how her daughter set up the ringtone for Grandma Jackie to be the Twilight Zone, because that kind of sets the vibe for what Grandma Jackie's role is going to be in the situation. And just, I have a lot to say about Grandma Jackie as the series goes on. She's an interesting character. What are your initial thoughts on her?
I mean, Grandma Jackie is interesting because she obviously is going to stick up for her boy Peter, and we'll see throughout the series how, in her eyes, most of the time, Peter can do no wrong. Peter is right. She tries to have Alicia, possibly forgiving Peter, like just forgive him. Like like, do you not realize what this man did to me? Like, Jackie is most of the time going to be blind to what Peter has done because that's her son, that's her boy, and we will see that Jackie, as we saw in this first episode, Jackie is going to be questioning Alicia's mother skills a lot and how she raises Zach and Grace. So that's going to definitely be a point of contention throughout most of the series between Alicia and Jackie.
Yeah, yeah. I forgot about Grandma Jackie. I was like,
Me
oh,
too. Me
I'm gonna
too.
have some things. She's also from Dawson's Creek. She was the grandma at Dawson's Creek.
Petrol.
I also liked how they started introducing how the case Peter's case is impacting the family as a whole. Not only did we have that mention of Alicia saying like, "Hey, I did his laundry for 15 years and I never thought to question anything because I trusted him," but we also are seeing that kids are like bringing up things to Zach and Grace at school, and this is something that will continue to be a theme for the family going on. And so another thing that Alicia's trying to do is protect her children from what their father did, and she doesn't really even know the full story behind what Peter did. So she's kind of stuck in a hard place here. We just have Grace calling Alicia saying, "Hey, is it true that one of Dad's prostitutes was my age?" Like, whole
Oh, man.
that's a heavy question to
Bro, I
just like
was like,
call.
damn. And it's so interesting on a procedural CBS show to even be talking like that. I was like, wow, that's kind of risque for a CBS. I mean, I suppose this was a 10 p.m. show, but wow, I was like, damn. And I mean, oh, also interesting. I noted in the like how stylized the show was. I had forgotten that in the early days of The Good Wife, we would talk about the crime and get a reenactment of the crime. I was just like, I don't remember this being in this show at all. Like, and we see flashes of the crime being committed. I was like, wow, I totally forgot that was a thing. And I don't know how long it's going to be in the show, but it gave very much our typical CBS procedural, like of
Yes.
how you flash the crime. But I just thought I'd throw that in there. But yeah, Zach and Grace as characters, from what I remember of watching the show week to week, I was not a big fan of Zach and Grace because it's the precocious kid syndrome for a lot of these shows. Kids can become very like annoying over time, and you can be like, oh, we gotta deal with these kids again, and whatever stupid plot line they're on. And I kind of remember thinking that way about Zach and Grace through a lot of this. And this first episode was fine. They were okay. But I think over time, I'd be like, oh, here we go with Zach and Grace again. How annoying are they going to be in this episode?
I think sometimes they're like either kids or parents. If it's a kid show, like the parents' storylines are like, ugh, why are we worried about like talking about the parents? And then if it's an adult show and there's kids, I'm always like, ugh, why are we talking about the kids? But yeah, they will get more involved as time goes on. The last relationship I just wanted to like mention, this isn't necessarily family, but I think there were some sparks between Alicia and Will in this episode. What are you thinking?
Yeah, maybe. You think so? I don't know.
They're
I
just old
wonder.
friends, Jason. They're just old friends.
Yeah, I wonder if something's gonna happen there. Who knows?
I
But
don't.
yeah, you could definitely feel the chemistry. You could feel the little bit of a spark as they reminisce a little bit about old times and all that stuff. I mean, listen, a veteran TV watcher, not even having watched the whole series of The Good Wife, will definitely see something and be like, okay, something a little happening there. I see you, Will and Alicia. I see you. But yeah, it's a very going to be interesting journey throughout the series for those two. We'll just leave it at that.
I mean, he hung out with her after hours to talk about the case with his baseball, and
Mm-hmm.
then brought her champagne after the case was dismissed. And they were talking
Mm-hmm.
about mock trial and reminiscing and the effect of nostalgia. So
Yeah.
the hints are there. The evidence has been presented, even in the first
Yes.
episode.
For sure. Just like and for Alicia, I know that she is a sympathetic character. in this thing, but I mean, you could have rougher landing spots and having to go back to a high paying law lawyer job.
Yeah.
She could be stuck getting a fast food job like a lot of people in America would be in cases like this. As much as
Yeah.
I feel for Alicia, it's like, oh, poor Alicia's got to go back to a high paying job.
Yeah, this is definitely privilege pity happening in this
Yeah, for
situation.
sure. 100%.
Well, that was the rundown of the first episode of The Good Wife. I feel great being it's like I don't even just feel good. I feel great being back
Yeah.
with these characters and the storylines. So I'm excited to continue watching them with you and talking with everyone about them. But Jason, yeah, that's all I have.
Yeah, I mean, listen, for everyone that's joined us from the journey with Elsbeth to this new journey, we're kind of rewinding the clock, starting at the beginning. If you liked our coverage on Elsbeth and decided to stay on over for Good Wife, whether you watched it or not, or if you're watching for the first time with us, welcome. You're going to have a great time.
Yeah.
If you're rewatching this series with us, wasn't that fun? Wasn't that great? Wasn't it a good time to revisit these characters? But yeah, I like you said, I had a blast, watching this first episode and talking about it with you, obviously. So I'm really looking forward to the rest of the time that we're going to have talking about this whole franchise, wife and fight and Elsbeth when Elsbeth comes back. Great time, love it. So listen, we're gonna stay on this train. We're next week we're gonna have episode 2 of season 1. We're gonna delve even further into these characters, have a little fun along the way. So we hope you're gonna join us for this whole journey.
Yes. So excited. We'll become doing weekly coverage all the way. Like you said earlier, there are many years of the show to do. So we are not at a loss for coverage and content. And we just want to thank everyone for tuning in. Please let us know like what you're thinking of the show, or if you are a first time watcher, like what are
Yeah.
your experiences watching the show for the first time? If you're a return watcher, I'd love to hear from you as well. You can always email us at thegoodpodfeedback@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you there. And also any of the podcasting platforms, we'd love to, if you're loving us, we'd love to hear from you as well. And,
Yeah, I mean,
I
if you're
think,
watching
what are
on,
your favorite number of stars, Jason? Like, if you were to think, like, what are your favorite, like, if you were to collect stars,
I
do you have like
feel
a
like
favorite number?
I feel like the only number of stars I'm even familiar with is 5 stars. So I think
Yeah.
if you out there are giving us a star rating, I think 5 stars is where you really want to go. I'm not even sure they have anything less than five.
Yeah. I think
So
they
I
come
think
in packs of five.
yeah, definitely. So I think the 5 star is where you're going to be at. So, I mean, listen, like Marissa said, any platform you're on, there's some way to rate us, some way to give us your feedback. You can give us stars on Spotify, you can give us stars and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We shout out those Apple Podcasts in both of our most recent episodes. So if you leave us a review, we will shout you out. Likewise, if you're on the YouTube, please hit the little thumbs up down here somewhere
Yeah.
where I'm pointing. So that thumbs up really helps us spread the word and get in other people's algorithms so they can see the show. If you want to leave a YouTube comment, we can also shout those out on the next episode. So there's so many ways for you to help and support us, and that really helps us to get into the eyes of other people. So Marissa,
Yeah.
if the people want to catch up with just you and see what you're up to, where
Wow.
can they find you, interact with you? If they're like, I don't like that Jason guy too much, I
Oh.
want to stick with Marissa and see what Marissa's all about, where can they talk to you, interact with you?
Well, first of all, we're a package deal. This is what happens. But if you're interested in what else I'm up to around the internet, you can find me at It's Me Marissa G on Instagram and Threads. The link in my bios there will give you more information as to where else you can find me. But that's what I'm doing. What about you?
Awesome, awesome. If you want to talk to me, I'm on the Twitter at JAYR1085. I promise I'm not a spam bot. That is my real Twitter name. When I made up that name, I didn't think I'd be talking to anybody on Twitter. I just thought I'd be lurking, so I didn't really be inventive with the name, but that is what it is. If you want to follow me on other podcasts, I am going to be on a podcast this week for the Rob Has a Podcast Network. They're doing a Survivor off-season podcast because it just got announced that Survivor 50 is going to be an all-star
Mm.
returning season. So we're kind of going through the different seasons to see who we would like to see on Survivor 50. I'm going to be talking about Survivor Africa this upcoming Tuesday, I believe, is when it drops. So check me and Mike Bloom out on that podcast, talking about that cast and who we'd like to see come back for Survivor 50. You can also catch me coming up if you're a fan of like trashy reality TV. I'm going to be talking about the show Perfect Match over on the Love at First Sight feed on Rob Has a Podcast. I'm going to be doing that with Kirsten McInnes. We're going to have a blast talking about these trashy people from other trashy shows that they've brought into another trashy show to be trashy altogether. So if that's your jam, you can check me out on that coming up in a week or so. It'll be coming up. So check me out there as well. Marissa, unless you got anything else, I think we are ready
Um,
to sign this one out.
that's all I
Um,
got.
we're in a new season here, so I had to come up with a new outro. So I think, until next week, stay good.